Welcome back to the horror storytelling channel Darkness in the Night. Today, the channel is proud to present a ghost story titled The Terrifying Bus Ride Home for the New Year. Before we begin, if you find this story engaging, please give me a like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for listening. Now let's get started. Afternoon of the 29th day before Lunar New Year. The Dalat sky was a dull gray. Fine drizzle drifting down, soaking the rows of pine trees standing motionless along the roadside. Wind whistled through narrow streets, carrying the pungent scent of resin and a skin-cutting chill. Nam stood before the iron gate of the sawmill, an old canvas backpack slung over his shoulder, heavy with the savings he had scraped together during 4 years of hard labor away from home. He drew in a deep breath, his chest burning with anticipation. If he could catch the bus tonight, he would make it back to Yanbai in time for New Year's Eve with his family, and to finally reunite with Lan, the girl he had promised to marry the day he returned. The thought quickened his steps. But when he reached the central bus station, his heart sank. Behind the ticket counter, the dispatcher shook his head while counting a stack of tickets. The last buses to the northern provinces left this morning. It's the holiday, kid. No one's running now. Try tomorrow morning. Maybe you'll catch one. Nam froze. No, are you sure there aren't any buses left tonight? No, it's too late. The man sighed and pulled down the canvas shutter. The station was emptying out. Only a few buses idling, bound for nearby districts. Night fell quickly. Dim yellow streetlights cast warped, elongated shadows on the damp ground as Nam walked out. He couldn't stay. If he waited until tomorrow, he would surely miss New Year's Eve, the moment he had dreamed of for years. Desperate, he decided to try his luck on the highway, hoping to flag down a ride. The road at night was eerily silent. Fog thickened, swallowing the glow of streetlights, leaving only faint halos in the mist. A sharp wind cut through the darkness, forcing Nam to pull his collar up and shiver by the roadside. That was when footsteps echoed behind him. 3 men emerged from the shadows, their faces hidden behind masks, hoods pulled low, their movements slow and menacing. One tilted his chin. "Where you headed, friend?" Nam tightened his grip on the backpack strap. "Home. Quite a trip. Carrying such a big bag on New Year's Eve looks heavy, doesn't it?" Another sneered. Nam instinctively stepped back. Danger prickled in his gut. Before he could retreat, one of them lunged, yanking hard at the strap. "Let go," Nam shouted, pulling back with all his strength. A blade flashed in the darkness. The third man flicked open a knife, slashing close to Nam's arm. His sleeve tore wide, cold wind slicing into his skin. Nam's face drained of color. If he lost this money, his 4 years of hardship would vanish like smoke. Just then, a blaring horn pierced the night. Headlights cut through the fog, flooding the road in blinding white. A silver coach screeched to a halt at the roadside. Its door creaked open, the sound chilling as metal scraping on bone. "Get in, quick!" A driver's voice boomed, hoarse, echoing like wind through a hollow pipe. Nam didn't think twice. He tore free of the muggers and scrambled aboard. The door slammed shut behind him. The bus roared, leaving the cursing men swallowed by mist. Inside was darker than he expected. Only a few ceiling bulbs flickered weakly, casting a pale, ghostly glow. Passengers sat scattered, motionless, the silence suffocating. The air was so cold his breath floated in pale clouds, collapsing onto a seat near the window. Nam panted heavily. And then, he saw her. A young woman, seated 2 rows ahead. She wore a white sweater, long black hair falling smoothly over her shoulders. Her face was pale, hauntingly beautiful, her dark eyes deep as if staring through the fog beyond the glass. When Nam's gaze met hers, she gave a faint smile. "You're going to Yanbai, aren't you?" Her voice was soft, like a drifting breeze. Nam stiffened. Yes. Are you traveling too?" "I'm going to back Jiang." She nodded gently, smiling again. "My name is Lin." Nam was about to ask more, but the bus suddenly jolted violently, as if plunging down a steep slope. The ceiling lights flickered, yet the passengers remained motionless. Not a sound from anyone. Outside the window, The black forest of pines rushed past. The fog was so dense that Nam felt as though the road stretched endlessly. Without a destination, Lin began to sing softly. A northern folk tune, light as mist, echoing through the silent bus. Her voice was beautiful, yet haunting, sending chills crawling across Nam's skin. Almost unconsciously, he glanced at the rearview mirror in front. His heart froze. In the reflection, the seat beside him was empty. Nam blinked hard. Still, the mirror showed the empty seat, as if he were the only passenger on the bus. He turned his head quickly. Lin was still there, leaning against the window, her face calm and serene. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice still as gentle as the breeze. "And nothing," Nam stammered, looking away, but his heart hammered. The air inside seemed to thicken, heavy and suffocating. All sounds faded, leaving only the grinding of tires against the asphalt. The bus tore through the night, swallowed by sheets of fog. Its headlights lit only a few meters ahead. Beyond that was ink-black darkness. The road seemed infinite, no stops, no signs, no other lights but this lone vehicle. Suddenly, the bus lurched again. Nam clutched the seat. A faint, metallic stench rose around him, the smell of blood, or rusted iron. He looked down at the floor. A streak of red seeped outward, flowing toward his feet. Nam recoiled, pulling his legs up. The stain spread wider, gleaming wet beneath the dim light. He swallowed hard. No one else reacted. The passengers sat frozen, eyes forward, like wooden statues. "Do you smell that?" Nam asked Lin. She only smiled faintly, saying nothing. A moment later, the red stain vanished, the floor dry and clean, as if nothing had ever been there. Nam shivered. Maybe he was too exhausted, hallucinating from stress. The bus slowed, then came to a complete stop. The ceiling lights went dark, leaving only the pale beams of the headlights cutting through the window. "Get off," the driver's voice rasped, hoarse, like from an old broken speaker. Nam hadn't spoken when Lin rose, gently motioning for him to follow. The passengers also stood and silently stepped down. Outside, the fog was so thick he could only see a few meters ahead. They were in a clearing, surrounded by a forest of pitch-black pines. The wind howled through the branches, like a chorus of cries. Ahead stood a small shrine. Its moss-covered roof sagged under time. Two flickering candles at the entrance casting warped shadows on the wooden walls. The acrid smell of incense choked the air, curling like gray smoke around them. "Come inside," Lin whispered, taking Nam's hand. Her hand was icy cold, soft like water. Hesitant, Nam still followed. Inside, a long wooden table was buried under layers of dust. Food had already been laid out: a cracked banh chung, a plate of dried-out chicken, a bowl of greasy soup with a gray film floating on top. The rancid odor nearly made Nam gag. The other passengers sat quietly around the table. No one spoke. They only stared fixedly at the dishes. "Sit down," Lin said with a faint smile. Nam trembled as he took a seat. The air was stifling. Outside, the fog pressed against the shrine walls, shadows occasionally drifting past the windows. Then, an old man across from him spoke, his voice rough as gravel. "I died in 2003. On this bus." Nam's throat tightened. The man's hollow eyes stared blankly as he continued. "It was the 29th day before Lunar New Year. The bus overturned at the Da Sar slope. We all died. Tonight is New Year's Eve, so we return." Nam shot to his feet, knocking the chair backward. "Who are you? What the hell is this place?" he shouted. Lin stood slowly, her eyes heavy with sorrow. "Don't be afraid. If you leave now, you'll wander lost forever." Nam's eyes darted around. The passengers lowered their heads, muttering strange words. The fog seeped into the doorway, swirling like a small cyclone. Children's laughter echoed from the darkness. Footsteps crunched closer. Nam whipped his head around. Out of the mist, more figures emerged, stumbling, pale-faced, with lifeless eyes. They sat at the table in silence, the wind outside groaning through the trees, mixing with Nam's frantic heartbeat. The shrine sank into darkness. Nam's eyelids grew unbearably heavy. The last thing he saw was Lin's face. Half lit, half shadow, whispering softly, "Eat, so you can make it home." Then everything dissolved into nothingness. Nam opened his eyes. He was seated at the feast table. Candles still burned, casting their sickly yellow glow across the pale faces surrounding him. No one lifted a chopstick, yet every gaze was fixed directly on him. It felt as though their eyes pierced through his flesh, staring straight into his mind. Nam tried to rise, but Lin gently touched his hand. "Eat." Her voice was soft as a breeze, but enough to send shivers racing down his spine. Nam lowered his eyes to the food. The bon chung had split open, its filling rotted green with mold. The plate of chicken was covered in buzzing flies. The soup bowl reeked with a sour stench. I can't eat this." Nam shook his head, his voice raw and hoarse. At that instant, everyone at the table lifted their heads in unison, their hollow eyes black as bottomless pits. One slowly opened his mouth, releasing a low hiss, like wind forcing through a crack in the door. Lin tightened her grip on Nam's hand and pulled him up. "Let's go." The shrine door burst open. Outside, the silver bus waited, its headlights cutting through the fog. The shadowy figures silently filed out first, one after another climbing back aboard. Nam heard the dragging shuffle of feet, sandals scraping the dirt like something being hauled along. "Get on," Lin whispered. Nam hesitated. Part of him wanted to bolt into the pines, flee into the night, but the darkness outside was so suffocating. He felt if he took only a few steps, he'd be lost forever. In the end, he climbed aboard. Inside, every seat was filled. No one spoke. Only the rumble of the engine filled the silence. Nam's palms were icy as he sat down. Lin beside him stared into the distance, her expression unreadable. The bus rolled forward. Beyond the window, pine trees streaked past like towering shadows. Fog coiled into thick ribbons, clinging to the glass. Nam could no longer tell whether it was night or day, only a dim light, like a waning moon, faintly illuminated the road. Then, a piercing screech split the air. The bus jolted violently, tipping to one side. Nam slammed against the window, nearly thrown across the aisle. Screams erupted everywhere. For a split second, he saw it clearly, shattering glass, blood spraying. Passengers hurled forward in chaos. Metal shrieked against asphalt. And then, silence. Nam blinked awake. The bus was running smoothly again, the ceiling lights glowing steadily. Passengers sat still, as if nothing had happened. No blood, no shards of glass. His heart pounded wildly. He rubbed his eyes. "What just happened?" he muttered. Lin turned toward him, smiling faintly. "We just passed the curve, where it all began." Nam glanced at the rearview mirror. In it, he saw only himself, no Lin, no passengers. The seats behind him were empty, the bus carrying only one. A chill ripped down his spine. At that moment, Lin leaned close, whispering in his ear, "Don't forget me." Her words had barely faded when the bus lurched again, plunging down a slope. The ceiling lights flickered wildly, bursting into a blinding white glow. Nam screamed, and darkness devoured everything. Nam jolted awake. He was still in his seat, head resting against the window. Outside, the fog was thick as ever, pine trees rushing past in a blur. His skull throbbed as if struck, his heart hammering wildly. He turned. Lin was still there, her face calm, untouched by anything that had happened. "Did you have a dream?" she asked, her voice as soft as a passing breeze. Nam swallowed hard. I saw the bus crash. Everyone." She pressed a finger to her lips and shook her head gently. "Don't say another word, we're almost there." "Where?" Lin didn't answer. She only turned to gaze out the window. The bus slowed, then stopped in the middle of a clearing. The night outside was pitch black, the headlights carving a dim yellow path. The driver, an old man with silver hair, turned back, his voice rough and gravelly. "Get off." This time Nam resisted, but the other passengers rose in unison, silently filing out as though they had done this countless times before. Lin clasped Nam's hand lightly, guiding him along. Outside, the fog pressed down like a heavy curtain. They crossed the clearing and approached a squat wooden house nestled deep among the pines. The wooden door creaked open, waiting for them. Inside, flickering candlelight fell across a long table piled with food. But Nam immediately noticed. Everything was spoiled. Rice hardened to stone, fish rotted to mush, soup cloudy and rank with stench. One by one, the passengers sat down without complaint. Lin pulled out a chair for him. Sit. Reluctantly, Nam sat, his hands gripping his knees tight. The air was so thick it felt like it could be sliced apart. A gaunt man, hair clumped and greasy as if it hadn't been washed in years, slowly turned toward Nam. His eyes were clouded, vacant. "You're new, aren't you?" he rasped. Nam swallowed but stayed silent. The man gave a thin smile. "I died at the Da Sar slope. The bus overturned. The fog was just like this that night. They say when someone dies unjustly, their soul lingers, waiting for New Year's Eve, to find the lost and lead them home." A young woman beside him added softly, her voice like wind through leaves. "We've waited many years. Sometimes no one comes. Sometimes one or two. This year, it's you." Goosebumps crawled across Nam's skin. He pushed back his chair, ready to bolt, but Lin clutched his hand. "If you leave now, you'll wander lost forever. You'll never make it home." Nam stared at her. Her eyes were no longer gentle, they were endless, heavy with sorrow. "Then, what do you want from me?" he stammered. No one answered. The wind outside wailed louder, echoing like mournful cries. Candlelight trembled, casting twisted shadows across the walls. Then, all at once, the figures at the table bowed their heads, whispering incomprehensible chants. The air grew freezing, as if it were rising straight from the earth beneath. Nam's chest tightened, his vision blurred. Through the mist seeping in under the door, he glimpsed shadowy figures approaching, stooped forms, faces pale as if powdered with lime. Lin leaned closer, whispering in his ear, "You must stay until the feast is over." Nam felt his legs glued to the floor. Lin's icy grip tightened on his hand until it ached. The candles went out. Nam sprang to his feet. The room was pitch black. The stench of mildew and spoiled food was so strong it made him gag. The shadowy figures still sat around the table, heads bowed, motionless. His heart pounded violently as he tore his hand free from Lin's icy grip and stumbled back toward the door. What do you want from me?" he shouted, his voice breaking. No one answered. He turned and bolted. The shrine door burst open, and the fog rushed in like a flood of icy water. Nam ran blindly, sprinting across the clearing and plunging into the pine forest. Branches whipped his face raw. His breath came in ragged gasps, each step heavier than lead. Something was following him. At first, it was the shuffle of footsteps, then faint hissing, then laughter drifting eerily through the trees. Nam glanced back, no one there. He kept running, until suddenly, the headlights appeared through the fog again, slicing the darkness. The silver bus stood waiting, exactly where it had been before. Nam froze, his heart sinking. No, this can't be happening. The bus door creaked open. Lin stood there, her eyes sorrowful. "You can't run, Nam." He shook his head frantically. "You're not human, you're all dead." Her face twisted for a moment. Then she nodded softly. "Yes, but we cannot leave this place until we bring someone back, to the other side." Nam stumbled backward, pressing against the cold trunk of a tree, his whole body trembling. "Why me?" "Because you stand at the boundary. Without a guide, you'll wander here forever. You'll never reach Yanbai. You'll never see your family again." Blood surged to Nam's face. His chest felt ready to explode. He screamed, "I won't go. I have to go home." In that instant, Lin vanished. The bus door remained open, but no one stood there. Silence blanketed the clearing. Nam turned to flee again, but froze. The forest was gone. He was back in front of the wooden shrine. The reek of spoiled food seeped out through the cracks. Suddenly, the roar of the bus engine shattered the silence. Headlights swept across, illuminating figures climbing aboard one by one. They looked as if they had just clawed their way out of the earth, clothes in tatters, caked in mud, some streaked with blood. Panic surged. But Nam's legs wouldn't obey. An unseen force dragged him toward the bus. The handrail was ice cold against his skin. He was shoved into a seat, the door slamming shut behind him. The bus shuddered, then slowly rolled forward. Nam looked down. Black liquid seeped across the floor, spreading until it turned deep red. The metallic stench of blood filled his nostrils. A sharp click. The lights went out. In the darkness, someone giggled right beside his ear. "You're about to see the truth." Lynn's whisper coiled in the dark. The bus sped up, rattling violently. Nam felt himself hurled forward, his fingernails digging into the seat, his head slamming against the window. Suddenly, the lights snapped back on, and Nam froze in horror. The seats around him were drenched in blood. Passengers sat stiff and silent, eyes bulging, heads twisted at grotesque angles, as if they had all died again. A headless man sat across the aisle, blood gushing from his neck, spraying the ceiling. Nam screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the void. Lynn sat calmly at his side. A faint smile tugged at her lips, though her eyes glowed red like burning coals. "You've made your choice, Nam." The bus hurtled forward, into nothing but an endless black abyss. The engine roared violently. Nam felt his body pinned to the seat. The bus shook like a raging beast thrashing against its chains. Outside the window, the pine forest blurred into black streaks. Fog coiled tight, wrapping the bus like an enormous net. "Stop the bus!" Nam screamed, pounding the glass. No one answered. The driver sat frozen, eyes rolled white, hands locked around the wheel. Blood dripped steadily from his forehead onto the steering column. Yet he didn't move an inch. The brakes shrieked with a piercing scream. In that instant, Nam saw the road ahead collapse into a cliff. The headlights lit only a sea of blinding fog. The bus plunged forward like a silver arrow. It all happened too fast. Nam heard metal twisting, glass exploding, voices shrieking until their throats tore. A brutal force hurled him from his seat. His head smashed against the ceiling before he slammed onto the blood-soaked floor. The stench of iron, smoke, and burning rubber filled the air. He forced his eyes open. The scene before him was hell itself. Seats torn apart, passengers flung across the wreckage, a severed arm lying inches from his face. Flames burst from the front of the bus, painting everything red. Amid the chaos, Lynn sat untouched, whole, unharmed. She looked at him, a sorrowful smile on her lips. "You see now, how we died." Nam shook his head, screaming hoarsely, "No, this can't be real." Lynn rose and knelt beside him. Firelight danced across her face, making her eyes seem bottomless. "You were the only one still breathing the night of the crash. But you haven't decided yet to stay or to leave." Her words struck him like a blade to the skull. "The night of the crash, what? I was never here before." Nam roared. Lynn didn't answer. She gently touched his forehead. Instantly, Nam's head exploded with pain. Memories flooded in, tires screeching on wet asphalt, screams filling the bus, headlights blinding, the sickening roll into darkness. He saw himself in the last row, clutching his backpack, before the black void swallowed everything. Nam jolted awake. He was lying in the middle of a pine forest. No bus, no blood, no one else. Dawn had broken, the sky pale gray. The silence was suffocating. He sat up, gasping for breath. Around him, only the distant sound of birds and the damp smell of earth. No trace of the feast. No trace of the dead. Beside him, on the ground, lay a white scarf. Nam picked it up. Embroidered on it were two words, Tui Lin. A chill shot down his spine. Staggering to his feet, he followed a dirt path back to the highway. In the distance, he heard the sound of a real bus engine. A coach heading toward Yenbai slowed to pick him up. Nam climbed aboard and sank into a seat by the window. As the bus rolled on, he glanced at the rearview mirror. Only his own reflection stared back. But as the headlights swept across a patch of forest, Nam swore he saw the faint figure of a girl in the mist, smiling. Nodding softly, Nam sat silently on the bus for the rest of the journey. The darkness outside the window slowly faded, replaced by the pale light of dawn on New Year's Eve. The damp country road carried the scent of earth and smoke from burning fields drifting in through the cracks, pulling old childhood memories to the surface. When the bus stopped at its final station, Nam stepped down, his backpack still heavy on his shoulders. He drew in a deep breath. No more eerie howls, no more swirling fog, only the crowing of roosters and the faint glow of kitchen fires from nearby homes. It felt like he had just escaped a nightmare. Nam caught a motorbike taxi back to his village. The familiar road appeared, rows of bamboo, misty rice fields, houses with red tiled roofs. At the entrance of the alley, a voice rang out in joy. Nam is back, Nam is back, everyone. His mother ran to him, tears streaming as she clutched him tight. His father stood behind her, hunched with age but his eyes shining with joy. Neighbors poured out, laughing and shouting, and among them, Lan was there. She wore a cream-colored sweater, a red scarf around her neck, her hair neatly tied back. Her eyes glistened with tears when she saw him. Nam. He stepped forward, gripping her shoulders firmly. I'm home. In that moment, all the fear, all the blood, all the screams seemed to vanish. The family prepared a feast to welcome Nam. Freshly boiled banh chung filled the air with fragrance. Braised pork with eggs gleamed under the lamplight. Firecrackers popped somewhere at the village gate, announcing the coming new year. Nam ate, but his mind drifted. The image of the overturned bus, the screech of metal, Lin's whisper, they echoed endlessly in his head. That night, as the family gathered at the altar for New Year's Eve, his father lit incense and prayed to their ancestors. Nam knelt, pressing his palms together. Smoke curled upward, blending with the night air drifting through the cracks of the wooden doors. And in that instant, Nam saw the shadow of a girl in the altar mirror. She wore white, her long hair falling over her shoulders. Her face was pale, yet her smile was gentle. Her eyes looked at him, as if trying to speak. Nam spun around, no one was there. Lan was still beside him, his mother arranging offerings, no one noticing anything strange. He swallowed hard, sweat beading on his forehead. That night, Nam couldn't sleep. He lay on his old bed, listening to the chirping of insects outside, the whisper of wind seeping through the cracks. Each time he closed his eyes, he found himself again on the silver bus, surrounded by passengers with hollow, lifeless eyes. In a restless dream, Lin appeared. She stood in the pine forest, her white scarf fluttering in the wind. You've come home, her voice echoed from far away. But don't forget what you owe. Nam jolted awake, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. He stepped out into the yard, breathing deeply. The new moon hung faintly in the sky. In the distance, he heard a faint sound, like footsteps crossing the yard. He spun around. No one, but at the corner of the yard, on the stone steps, a long wet streak remained, like the imprint of a fresh footprint. That night, Nam tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The wind outside the garden whistled softly, at times like someone faintly whistling a tune. More than once, Nam clearly heard knocking at the door, 3 steady knocks. He bolted upright, heart racing. Who's there? He called, his voice trembling. No reply. Hands shaking. Nam opened the door. The yard lay empty. A cold gust swept in, making the oil lamp on the table flicker weakly. Under the moonlight, he spotted a small object placed on the doorstep, a withered wild sunflower, its petals stained with mud. He picked it up. The damp scent of soil filled his nose, and the foggy pine forest, the silver bus, flashed through his mind. The next morning, Nam went to the tea stall at the village entrance to ask the old woman there, someone who knew many old stories. Grandmother, on the pine road near Da Sar Pass, was there a bus crash years ago? The old woman narrowed her eyes, lowering her voice. Yes, more than 10 years ago. A bus carrying 7 passengers and the driver. On New Year's Eve, thick fog, it plunged into the ravine. No one survived. A chill shot down Nam's back. No one survived at all? They pulled out all the bodies. One girl was very young, very beautiful. They said her name was Lin, from Bac Giang. Such a pity, never made it home for the new year. The old woman sighed, her tone sinking. They say her spirit still lingers there. Whoever meets her at midnight on New Year's Eve may escape. But if not, they'll be lost forever. Nam sat frozen, cold sweat forming on his forehead. That evening, he decided to tell Lan everything. The two sat on the porch, moonlight casting pale silver across her face. Nam recounted it all, from the roadside robbery, to the silver bus, to Lin and the crash. Lan gripped his hand, her face pale. Are you sure it wasn't a dream? It felt real, too real. I even found this. Nam pulled out the white scarf. Lan took it, slowly unfolding the corner embroidered with letters. She stared for a long moment, then whispered, Nam, I think she really saved you. Nam squeezed Lan's hand tightly. I know, but I can't stop thinking about her. Every time I close my eyes, I see Lin standing there. In the fog, Lan stayed silent. The night wind swept across the porch, making the oil lamp flame sway. That night, Nam dreamed again. He stood before the wooden shrine. Its door open. Inside, lights glowed. The table still set with rotting food. Lin stood there, smiling sadly. You must return. Your path isn't finished yet, she said, her voice echoing from far away. Nam tried to ask, what path? But no sound came from his lips. The scene twisted, turning into a steep, endless road, at the end of which blazed a blinding white light. Nam jolted awake. Outside the window, the wind howled louder, like someone calling his name. He rose, opened the door, and stepped into the yard. A long streak of mud stretched from the gate to the doorstep. In the middle of the track was a single, delicate footprint, small, unmistakably that of a woman. On the afternoon of the 5th day of the Lunar New Year, Nam decided to return to the highway leading to Dasar Pass. Lan tried to stop him. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. Maybe another day. Nam shook his head. I have to go now. I need to know what really happened. He carried the white scarf, a flashlight, and some incense sticks. The road up the pass was eerily empty. The fog was thicker than usual, swallowing the last traces of afternoon light. Nam slowed his motorbike, his heart thudding. When he reached the curve where he'd been ambushed before, he stopped, stepping off. He saw the pines on both sides rising like black walls. He followed a narrow path deeper into the forest. With each step, dry needles crunched underfoot, and the wind moaned through the treetops like someone weeping. After 10 minutes, a small shrine appeared, its roof heavy with moss. The wooden door hung ajar, the inside completely dark. Nam lit 3 sticks of incense, pressing his palms together. If someone is here, show me the truth. I mean no harm. The incense flared unsteadily. Suddenly, a cold wind rushed past, and the shrine's door banged open. Inside, an oil lamp flared to life. Nam trembled but stepped inside. A long table stood within, cluttered with old, moldy bowls and chopsticks. But before his eyes, they changed, gleaming clean. Laden with steaming food, faint figures appeared, slipping silently into their seats. They wore faded clothes as if from a New Year's Eve long past. Their faces were pale, their eyes sunken, and among them was Lin. She wore the same faded green coat, hair loose over her shoulders, her face gentle. You came back, she said, her voice soft as wind yet echoing through the shrine. Nam swallowed hard, forcing himself to stay calm. Lin, who are you really? She stepped closer, until her face was only a hand's span from his. He saw a glistening tear at the corner of her eye. I died here, but I cannot leave. Every year, I ride that bus again, to collect the lost. The desperate. Nam's chest tightened as he stepped back. Why did you save me? Because you still have a path ahead. Someone waits for you at home. I couldn't let you become like us, trapped here forever. Behind her, the figures began tapping their chopsticks against bowls, the sound clattering in eerie unison. The lamp went out. In the dark, a hand as cold as ice gripped his. Lin's whisper brushed his ear. You must leave now. When the lights go out, the bus comes. And indeed, from afar, the roar of an engine grew louder. Closer, like a bus charging straight toward the shrine. Nam spun and bolted. The screech of brakes split the air, glass shattering in a violent crash. For a split second, He saw blinding headlights swallow him whole, then everything went black. When he opened his eyes, he was sprawled on the dirt road, several yards from the shrine. His flashlight lay on the ground, incense still smoldering. The shrine was dark, as though no light had ever been inside. He scrambled up, drenched in sweat. His hand still tingled with the icy grip of Lynn's touch, and the white scarf, gone from his pocket. As he turned to leave, her voice drifted from the forest, faint as the wind itself. "Don't forget me." The fog thinned, revealing the moonlit highway. Nam staggered back to his motorbike, feeling as though he had just stepped out of another world. From the night he returned from the pine forest, Nam seemed like a different man. He spoke little, often sitting in silence, staring into nothing. At night, he would wake drenched in sweat, ears still echoing with the sound of clattering chopsticks, screeching brakes, and Lynn's whisper, "Don't forget me." Lan grew worried. She secretly followed him a few times and saw that he often went out into the yard at midnight with a flashlight, standing for hours gazing at the distant mountains. One morning, she confronted him. "Nam, what are you hiding from me? Since the day you came back from the forest, you're no longer yourself." Nam was silent for a long while. At last, he said, "I saw Lynn again, in the shrine. She told me, I still have a path to walk. Lan, I feel like I owe her something. If I don't return, if I don't do something, I'll never be at peace." Lan froze. "But you didn't do anything wrong. You can't live forever in the past of someone who's already dead." Nam took her hand, his voice hoarse. "I know, but Lynn can't move on. I can feel it. Every night, I see her standing by the road, calling me." Lan pulled her hand back, tears brimming. "And what about me? I'm standing here, calling you every day. Can't you see me?" Her words cut into Nam's chest like a blade. He had no reply. In the days that followed, Nam sank deeper into obsession. He began recording his dreams. Strange details. The 3 knocks on the door. Muddy footprints. The faint smell of incense smoke lingering in his room. One night, he dreamed again of the silver bus. He boarded, and there was Lynn, seated in the very back, her sorrowful eyes fixed on him. The other passengers were there too, but this time they weren't silent. They all turned to him, their mouths moving as if to speak. "You must take us home." Lynn's voice rang out, clearer than ever. Nam jolted awake. Outside, the night was still dark, but he could hear a motorbike passing, dogs barking loudly. On the table, the oil lamp suddenly flared to life, though he hadn't lit it. Lan rushed in, terrified. "You dreamed again, didn't you? You're soaked, like you walked through rain." Nam trembled, but his eyes burned with resolve. "Lan, I have to go back one more time. This time, I'll find a way to free them. If I don't, I'll lose my mind." Lan bit her lip, silent, tears rolling onto the pillow. The next morning, Nam packed his backpack. He brought incense, an oil lamp, and simple offerings. Lan stood by the door, silent, until she finally whispered, "Just remember, I'm still waiting." Nam looked at her for a long moment, then turned away. On the road to the pass, the fog was as thick as before, but now, it felt familiar. He thought he could hear the grinding of bus tires behind him, urgent and heavy. For an instant, he glimpsed the shadow of the silver bus in his rearview mirror, though the road was completely empty. His heart pounded. He knew, tonight, the ghostly bus would come again. That night, Nam pulled his motorbike to the side of the highway, switching off the engine and lights. Darkness and fog swallowed the entire road. He stood still, listening. At first, only the wind hissed through the pines, and insects chirped faintly. But then, the sound of an engine rumbled in the distance. Steady and heavy, like the heartbeat of some massive beast. Silver headlights pierced the mist. The bus emerged, slowing to a stop right in front of Nam. The door opened with a chilling hiss. Nam drew a deep breath and stepped inside. The air within was damp and cold, faintly scented with incense. Empty seats gradually filled with hazy figures, the same passengers from before. They sat frozen, eyes wide, staring straight ahead. Lynn sat at the very back. She smiled softly when she saw Nam. "You came back." Nam slid into the seat beside her. a shiver racing up his spine. I want to know what I must do to help you. And everyone else, leave this place. The bus began to move. Outside, the scenery sped past, but it no longer looked like the highway. Instead, warped trees bent at odd angles. Broken road signs leaned sideways. And abandoned wrecks of cars rusted on either side. We died on this pass. Lynn's voice trembled. That night, the driver fell asleep. The bus plunged into the ravine. 7 lives, trapped forever. No shrine was built. No one remembered us. Our souls wandered, unable to return home. Her voice cracked. Nam glanced around. The other passengers had turned their heads, their hollow eyes brimming with sorrow. A gaunt man whispered hoarsely, "All we want is to celebrate one last New Year's Eve at home." A child's soft sobbing rose from the front row. Nam shuddered. He hadn't seen this child before. Lynn lowered her head. "That's Hoa's baby. She was one of us. I held him when the bus went over. Every night, he cries to go home." Nam's chest tightened painfully. He pulled incense and matches from his backpack, striking a flame right there in the aisle. Fire flickered to life, illuminating the passengers' faces, pale, streaked with blood, as though they had just been pulled from the wreck. With shaking hands, Nam bowed 3 times. "I promise to build a shrine for you, so travelers will always light incense. I'll bring your photos home if I can find your families." Silence blanketed the bus. Then, one by one, the passengers nodded. Lynn smiled through tears. "Thank you, but to be free, you must travel to the end of the road tonight." The bus turned sharply onto a narrow slope smothered in fog. Its wheels ground over gravel with a shrill scrape. The air grew so heavy Nam could barely breathe. Suddenly, the screech of brakes tore through the night. The entire bus shook violently. Blood gushed from nowhere, flooding the floor. Passengers screamed. Metal shrieked and crumpled. Nam clutched his seat, heart hammering. He realized they were reliving the crash. Lynn turned to him, whispering, "Don't be afraid. Hold my hand." He reached out. Her hand was icy, but she gripped his tightly. The headlights blinked out. Everything plunged into darkness. The bus dropped as if into endless void. Wind howled past his ears, then silence. When Nam opened his eyes, he was standing on the mountain pass. The silver bus was gone. Only the faint smell of smoke lingered, and at his feet lay a single wild sunflower. In the distance, the first rays of dawn crept over the mountain peaks, scattering the fog. The next morning, Nam returned home with a vacant expression. His backpack was caked with mud, and a long tear stretched across his jacket as if he had been dragged. You saw them again, didn't you?" Lan asked, her voice trembling. Nam nodded. He recounted the entire journey from the night before, speaking slowly, as though afraid to miss a single detail. Lan sat still, her hands clenched tightly together. "I promised them," Nam finished. "I have to build a shrine, so they have a place to return to." Lan sighed. This time, she didn't try to stop him. She simply said, "Then I'll help you." In the days that followed, Nam went to the district police office and the archives to search for records of the old accident. Everything seemed forgotten. Only a brief report remained, noting the 2003 crash, 7 dead. The driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. No relatives ever came to claim the bodies. They had been buried hastily near the site. Nam resolved to build a new shrine at the path he had once walked. He cleared the weeds himself, stacked bricks, and set up a small altar. Lan brought fruit and incense. When the shrine was complete, the 2 lit sticks of incense and bowed. "May the souls here find peace. Please don't wander in the darkness anymore." As the smoke rose, the wind suddenly stilled. Petals of wild sunflowers drifted down, scattering across the shrine's entrance. Nam felt a wave of warmth wash through his body. He thought, perhaps, they had heard. But that night, Nam dreamed again. He saw Lynn standing on the familiar road. But this time she wasn't smiling. Her face was streaked with tears. "You've done well, but I still cannot leave. There is one more, who hasn't returned." Nam pressed urgently. "Who? What must I do?" Lynn shook her head, her form fading, leaving only her voice lingering in the mist. "Wait for New Year's Eve. Then, The bus will take its final journey. Nam jolted awake, his heart pounding. Outside the window, the full moon hung pale and ghostly, its cold glow spilling into the room. On the table lay the white scarf he thought had vanished, neatly folded. Spotless, as if it had never been stained with blood. Lan entered the room, seeing him frozen, clutching the scarf, eyes distant. "Nam, are you all right?" He slowly turned to her. "Lan, this New Year's Eve, I must go once more. For the last time." Lan bit her lip. She was used to the dread of hearing such words. But this time his eyes were different, calm, resolute, like a man who finally understood his fate. Outside, the wind suddenly rose, bending the lamp flame sideways. The sound of pine needles rustled through the night, like whispers carried on the air. New Year's Eve, the whole village glowed with lanterns and flowers, firecrackers popping faintly in the distance. But inside Nam, everything was still. He put on his jacket, carefully packing incense, fruit, the white scarf, and a hastily written letter into his backpack. Before leaving, he turned to Lan. "If I don't make it back by midnight, light incense and call my name. I'll find my way home." Lan gripped his hand tightly, her eyes red with tears. "You must come back. I'll be waiting." Nam nodded, then stepped onto the road. The path up the pass was pitch black, lit only by a cold moon hanging overhead. Tonight, the fog was thicker than ever, as though it knew he was coming. He stopped at the familiar spot, switched off his bike, and stood in silence. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Then, the familiar engine's growl echoed from afar. Silver headlights tore through the mist. The bus stopped before him. The door opened. Nam drew a long breath and climbed aboard. Inside, all the passengers turned to face him, their eyes no longer hollow, but filled with urgency, with hope. Lin sat at the front this time. Unlike before, she wore a pure white dye, her hair tied neatly, her face serene, though her eyes carried deep sorrow. "You came back," she said softly. Nam sat beside her, clutching the white scarf. "Tell me, who is the one who hasn't returned?" The bus lurched forward, moving faster than ever, as if racing against the clock of midnight. Outside, the world was nothing but blackness, streetlights blurring into streaks like ghostly flames. Lin turned to him, lips trembling. "It's the driver. He never left the wheel." Nam's eyes widened. He looked ahead. The driver's seat was empty, yet the wheel turned on its own, the pedals pressing themselves. A faint figure appeared, a middle-aged man, face streaked with dried blood, eyes wide and lifeless. "He died drowning in guilt," Lin whispered. Her voice quivered. "He believed he killed us all. We don't blame him, but he refuses to let go." Nam swallowed hard, the air inside thick as tar. "Then what must I do?" Lin gripped his hand, eyes pleading. "You must speak forgiveness for us. If you don't, this bus will run forever without stopping." The bus jolted violently, accelerating. The passengers groaned, their voices low and haunting. Blood seeped again from the seats, the acrid smell filling the cabin. Nam rose, staggering toward the driver's seat, heart hammering. He leaned close to the flickering figure, shouting over the roar of the engine, "I forgive you. They forgive you. Stop the bus." The shadow froze. The wheel stopped turning. The bus slowed, its engine dying into silence. In that fragile stillness, Nam heard sobs rising from behind him. Turning, he saw Lin smiling at last, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. The entire bus burst into radiant white light. A fierce wind swept through, and then, everything dissolved, as if it had never been. Nam found himself standing alone on the desolate pass. No bus, no fog, only the faint crackle of fireworks echoing from afar. In his hand, the white scarf slipped to the ground, transforming into a fresh wild sunflower. He picked it up, breathing deeply. From the distance, the midnight bell tolled, ringing long into the new year. Nam sped down the road on his motorbike, not fleeing in fear this time, but racing toward life itself. The village appeared through a thin veil of mist, every home lit brightly. The smell of bon chung, wood smoke, and damp earth after rain tightened his chest. As soon as he stopped at the gate, He saw his parents and Lan waiting. They cried out together, "Nam, you're home." Lan ran to him, wrapping her arms around him, hands trembling with joy. Nam said nothing, burying his face in her hair, listening to fireworks booming across the sky. His parents, eyes glistening, pulled him inside. The altar was ready, covered with flowers and incense. Nam knelt, lighting a stick of incense, and prayed silently. "I've come home, thanks to a bus, and thanks to someone I'll never forget." The smoke curled upward, shaping the faint image of a face in the air. For a fleeting moment, Nam saw Lin's eyes, gentle, at peace. He blinked, and the vision vanished. The New Year's Eve meal was warm and full of laughter. Everyone chatted cheerfully, though Nam sometimes fell silent, hand clutching the wild sunflower hidden in his pocket. That night, after his family had gone to bed, Nam stepped onto the porch. The New Year's moon shone brilliantly, lighting the dirt road leading out of the village. He sat down, opened his backpack, and pulled out the letter he had written for Lin. In it, he wrote, "Thank you for saving me, and for saving the driver. If there is another life, may you go where you wish. May you sing your favorite song without fear. I will never forget you." Nam burned the letter, watching the flame consume it until ashes drifted away with the wind. From somewhere far off, he thought he heard a faint melody, the folk song Lin once sang. A tear slid down his cheek, but this time it was a tear of release. On the 5th day of the new year, while the village bustled with festival cheer, Nam quietly returned to the old mountain pass. He brought flowers, incense, and a bottle of white wine. The pine forest was eerily calm. No thick fog, only the resinous scent of pine carried by the wind. He walked deep into the forest, to the place where the bus had vanished before. There, he found a moss-covered shrine, so weathered it nearly blended into the earth. Before it stood a stone marker. Nam knelt, wiping away the moss until the words appeared. Tran Thuy Lin, 1984 to 2003. With 6 passengers who perished in the bus accident on New Year's Eve. His chest tightened. He lit incense, placed flowers, poured the wine, and bowed in silence. "You brought me home safely. Today, I bring you back to where you belong," he whispered. A sudden wind swept through, rustling the pines. Nam thought he heard a soft, tender laugh dissolve into the breeze. He placed the last wild sunflower before the shrine, his shoulders lighter, as if he had repaid an invisible debt. Months later, Nam and Lan married. On the day their first daughter was born, Nam cradled the child and gently said to his wife, "I want to name her Thuy Lin." Lan smiled softly. "It's a beautiful name, almost like fate." Nam gazed at the baby's face. Startled, the child smiled, her eyes glimmering just like Lin's that night she parted from him on the ghostly bus. A gentle breeze drifted through the window, setting the wind chime tinkling. Nam held his daughter closer, whispering in his heart, "You can rest now." Somewhere, deep in the pine forest, a figure in a white oudai stood still under the moonlight. She smiled, eyes glowing with serenity, before fading slowly into the silver mist. The story closes with the meeting of 2 worlds. Nam had been saved, and the souls on the bus finally freed. Yet Lin remained in his heart, forever a memory, a reminder, and a boundless gratitude. This story comes to an end. Thank you for listening until now. If you enjoyed it, please give a like and subscribe. It is a great encouragement for us to write more ghost stories for you. If you have any questions or notice any mistakes, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and Bong Toi Trong Dem will see you in the next story.